Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. Happy New Year! I'm Serge. Joining me, as always, I have a Jer.
Hello.
An Alex.
Hey!
And a Ben.
Hello, yes, I am Wheeler.
A reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support at the Patreon over at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. All right, let's start it off with the best card you're not playing. The first card of the new year up today is me. And I want to talk about a little piece of secret spicy tech that I play. I know some people know this one, but I want to argue about why it's great in Highlander. That card is Bojuka Bog. Bojuka Bog is a land, surprising absolutely nobody. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a black, but important line of text, when it enters the battlefield, exile all cards in target player's graveyard. I like this card a lot, and this is going to surprise people, in lands.
What?
So I like it specifically when you can use it as a trick. When you have an instant speed ability to either get a lot of land tutors or to surprise your opponent. So your opponent goes to cast Reanimator, and you can crop rotation in response, put Bojuka Bog into play, and just try and get them. A lot of people might just roll Bojuka Bog anyways in a black deck, and just kind of no value, play it, I guess, clear out your graveyard. But if you have that ability to use it as a trick.
That's really, I think it's best in lands, but it's not even bad in other decks, because people play these cards that have a mechanic called Delve on it. I hear it's kind of strong.
Snapcaster, something like that.
It's also a really great Knight of the Reliquary Toolbox edition.
Woof.
Because it also gives you the instant speed edition. You can just get it for value on end step because you want to be activating your Knight every turn anyways. So having like a larger collection of Knight toolbox cards is always useful.
Yeah, I think it's underplayed, and especially when we talk about this all the time too. Really trying to cut down the amount of utility lands you play. This is probably a great meta call. I mean, you often talk about cards like Karakas and Mazevith and Wasteland being very, very powerful, and I would argue that Bojuka Bog, especially meta dependent, might be one of those toolbox lands you play in if you have to answer something. Yeah. Anybody else have any strong feelings about this card?
Has anybody ever Teleria Wested for this?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I've still been scrying for it as well. That's the thing. If you're against a certain matchup, your opponent just buried alive and passed and then looked you in the eye and you're like, do you have it? You're like, yes.
Get him. Just get him.
Yeah, they're like, I didn't play around the Bojuka Bog. And no one never does. All right, let us talk about today's theme. So in late December, there was a very special Magic event, a little something called GP Vancouver. And all four of us were in attendance there. And something absolutely amazing, there was a sanctioned Canadian Highlander event. And according to head judge Trevor, there were 59 players, which was fantastic because this is sanctioned, which means no gold borders, no proxies. You have to have all the cards you're doing there, which makes the barrier to entry a lot higher. Also, GP Vancouver was sandwiched between Christmas and New Year's and was in Canada, which meant, compared to, say, a larger American GP at a more open weekend, attendance may not have been as big as it could be. So the fact that 59 people were still there was absolutely incredible. And we had people from all over the world, which is really cool.
New Zealand?
We had somebody travel as far as New Zealand come to hang out. And a little bit of shameless self-promotion. The Mothership, the official Magic website, even did a little write-up about the article, and there was a handsome photo about of the four of us, and it featured Jer predominantly, which was fantastic, and we're glad to hear that. So today's episode, we're going to talk about our GP experience and sort of the decks we played, the people we got to play against, and maybe a couple little Magic stories. So let's start off with Jer. Jer, what did you play?
So I brought two decks to the GP, and I was going to make a game time decision on what to play. I brought High Tide, which is what I ended up playing, and I brought another deck that I ended up loaning to a friend.
I may have been that friend.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, so the reason I brought High Tide is because I thought it would be really good in an unknown meta. It's always typically better to be proactive because it's tough to guess what you're going to need to be reactive against. So I decided on being more proactive. And I also thought that a lot of the people who knew me from the podcast of my first couple turns of like islands, counter spells, and draw
Like
spells
he's on Seinfeld.
might put me on Seinfeld, and it actually happened twice.
Really?
That my first two opponents both assumed I was on Seinfeld and then died on turn 5.
Oops.
When I cast High Tide, they were like, "Oh," and then they're like, "Yeah, I'm dead."
What was your record?
I went 3-0.
These. All right, that's not bad. Well, so it's High Tide, and it's a combo deck, and you'd imagine tutors and certain things would perform very well. But what do you think was an outstanding card that I don't know, maybe a lot of people wouldn't think of, or that really overperformed at this event?
So I had two sort of exceptional cards in this tournament that weren't like the obvious of like High Tide Demonic Tutor. The first one was Engulf the Shores, which is a 4-mana instant, 3 and a blue. Return all creatures to their owner's hands with toughness less than the number of islands you control.
Less than or equal to.
Less than or equal to, that's right. So this is a super powerful card against the aggressive decks.
Yep.
And it also lets you rebuy a bunch of almost all your creatures have ETB ability, except for Baral, basically. So it lets you reuse Snapcaster, reuse your untapped creatures like Cloud of Fairies, Peregrine Drake, Palinchron. So it has some use on the combo turn, even if you're not against an aggressive
Wait,
deck.
you have enough islands in play to bounce your own Palinchron?
It only has 7 toughness.
5 toughness.
5 toughness, right?
Oh,
It's a
okay.
4/5.
Great Whale's got 7.
That's the one I was thinking of. And the other card that super overperformed for me was Sentinel Tower, which is a card I've been super high on in High Tide ever since it got printed in Battle Bond. It's a 4-mana artifact. Whenever any player casts a spell on your turn, it deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of instant and sorcery spells cast before that spell this turn. It's
I have
only
to read this
instant
again.
or sorcery spell.
Whenever an instant or sorcery is cast during your turn, deal 1 damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of... Okay, so this is your win con? This is your counterspell defense? Yeah, Alex.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah, so
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're done.
So it's a way to win without tendrils, which is really important for the deck because sometimes you get choked off of black mana because you don't play any swamps. You only play the 4 blue-black duels that have the island swamp types. And so having ways to win with colorless cards is really important. And this card, along with Aetherflux Reservoir,
Yeah, I was going to say,
are both really, really vital to the deck because it gives you a colorless way to win without infinite mana.
Would you play this over? You play them both. This immediately made me think of Aetherflux Reservoir.
Better because it helps you control the board while you're doing it. So it's a way to get hate bears off the board. You cast a spell, you kill their Thalia. You cast a spell, you kill their Aven Mind Hunter.
Can you explain Reservoir really quickly as well?
Yeah, Reservoir is also a 4-mana artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn, not just instants and sorceries. This is any spell. And it has an activated ability of pay 50 life, Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So this also...
Target creature!
Yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes you have to do it. They have creatures that give them hexproof. I've had to go up to 100, kill their Shalai, then kill them.
Just like spirit bomb this Shalai.
Yeah, it's overkill.
Amazing.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Sentinel Tower is pretty hilarious in that I played High Tide. I used to play High Tide a lot back in the day. And I picked it up about a month ago. I just wanted to jam with it. And I remember having games where I'm not doing anything. I'm just casting Opt, and then I'm casting like Supreme Will, and just wrathing their board every single turn. And you kind of turn into this Seinfeld where your opponent scoops because they're so tilted. Because you're just like, all right, blow that up. I'll ping you for 3. Go. And then you just keep doing that ad
Does this
nauseum.
card maybe have a place in like non-high tide decks?
After playing it, I think maybe. I actually won a game, the only game I can think of without ever having cast High Tide in the game. I technically cast High Tide as the last spell to get the last trigger.
Was that
at GP Vancouver? Or just...
Yeah, it was in the tournament. I actually could have cast a different spell to have the first High Tideless victory I can think of.
When you say this card, you're referring to Sentinel Tower, not Aetherflux Reservoir.
Sentinel Tower.
This is for our audio-only listeners.
Yeah. Good call. Thank you, Beach.
So, Yeah, I was super impressed with Sentinel Tower. It was super great for me all weekend.
I want to talk about this card a little bit more. What other deck would you put this in?
Any kind of spell like control deck.
Are you thinking like blue-red kind of spells, or would you put it in blue-white control?
I wouldn't put it in blue-white control.
Okay.
I'd play this in Heartbeat.
Yeah, I could definitely see playing it in Heartbeat. I think you could any deck that plays draw 7s, you could potentially put it in that has like more than 35 spells. You could play it like. You could potentially play this in Storm. I don't think it's that ridiculous.
I wonder if this would be any good in like Big Boros or something.
Big Boros, you're typically only playing 1 or 2 spells.
I was gonna say you really I don't see playing it outside of a blue deck because the real power comes from being able to just string cantrips together.
Yeah.
So like Yawgmoth's in this card are best friends. Draw 7s in this card are best friends. Like
I don't imagine casting Wildfire and doing 1 additional damage is right. Like,
Wildfire T.
Gotta kill that X5.
Yeah.
Get him.
But
Any outstanding stories you want to talk about from the GP? Any people you met that were super exciting?
yeah, I got to play against. I'm gonna shout out. I asked him for permission. So Joe from New Zealand
Nice.
was super awesome. And I got to play against TJ who does a bunch of
from Geek
coverage.
Fortress.
I got to hang out with him all weekend, and that was super awesome. It was sort of the first weekend we got to hang out a bunch and jam some Canlander, so that was super fun.
Cool.
It was the first GP I've been to where I haven't been either judging or playing the main event, so it was by far the least stressful GP weekend for me ever. So that was.
Just hang out and jam some games.
Yeah, super
Whoa,
awesome.
hang on.
That's
Yeah,
TJ.
that's TJ.
All right.
I like how Beach puts up the pictures. Like, wait, that's the right person, right?
Man, they're kidding.
Did they bring back invitational cards?
I wasn't. That was my joke.
Ah! Not
Amazing.
too quick on the draw, are we?
It's like I know they're pushing textless, but anyway.
All right, I want to talk about my Highlander experience. So before the event started, maybe I don't know, 15 minutes before it's supposed to go, I walk up to Jer and I'm like, I need to borrow a green mox because I didn't have one for my deck. And Jer said, okay, I have a green mox, but it's in this deck. And instead of just borrowing the mox, why don't you look through this deck? And it ended up being this impossibly spicy green-red Turboland deck. And I was like 10 cards in, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I'm like 20 cards in, I'm like, oh, uh-oh. And about 30 cards in.
Oops.
At about 30 cards in, I'm like, I'm just playing this deck.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fantastic. And I also went 3-0 with it. And I'll ask myself the same questions. Were there any outstanding cards, Serge? Well, I would actually like to say there was no one card that I think outperformed. I think the thing that made me really happy was in the 6 games that I won, I had a different win con every time. And that's not to say that, you know, I'm a mid-range card and I'm a mid-range deck and I won with like a different threat each time, uniquely different win cons each time. I won a game by scape shifting into Valakut. Pretty classic. I thought that was really cool. I won a game by having Titania in play. So Titania is a 5-mana legendary friend.
Protector of Argoth.
Protector of Argoth, yeah. 5-mana, 5/3 legendary elemental for 3 green. When Titania enters the battlefield, return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever a land you control is put into the graveyard, you get a 5/3 elemental token.
This card's pretty good with Zurin Orb.
This card is like one of the best cards in the format,
Yeah.
I think.
So funny that Alex should mention that. I had another artifact in play, a 0-mana artifact called Zurin Orb, that just has a line of text that says, sacrifice a land, gain 2 life. So I was up against Hoof. We were doing a little bit of math back and forth. There was this attack where they were coming at me, and then I was just like, go to 1, and they're like, okay. I'm like, sacrifice all my lands, crack for 35?
Get him.
Yeah, and they're like, oh.
Oh no.
All right, that's win con number 2. Win con number 3, I was playing against the same Hoof player. And this is probably one of my favorite stories from the GP. So it's a younger player, and their older brother is standing behind them. And I've had a Thespian stage in play for like, I don't know, 7 or 8 turns at this play. So Thespian stage is a land that says, The only relevant text here is pay 2 and tap. Thespian Stage becomes a copy of target land. A lot of people assume that it has to target one of your own lands, but it's target any land.
Uh-oh.
And so my opponent, who's playing Hoof, also has Thespian Stage Dark Depths combo in their deck, and they're just not thinking. They play Dark Depths. And the best part about this is the older brother who's standing behind him is just like,
You can see the depth coming.
yeah. And does a very good job of trying not to communicate anything because you can't do outside interference. But older brother was not pleased, and then I try and just like, I have been accused of not having a poker face, but they play it. I'm just like, okay, and then they pass their turn and like end step. I'm just like, copy your Dark Depths, and they're like, no, and then of course Merit Lodge is like, oh hey, and that was my win con that game.
Might actually be the, like, not to cut you off, but that's going to be a perfect segue into what my experience was.
You wanna jump there?
Sure.
Sure.
I can't beat Mart Lodge. I brought Black Mold to the table, which is a deck I'm very fond of, as you've probably heard.
Yeah, low to the ground, aggro, get him.
It's just like Golgari aggro. It's like a sort of an extension of the old sort of mono black aggro, like Sui Black, but with a little sprinkling of green to increase the creature quality and give it some outs against things that Black normally is not able to interact with at all, i.e. like artifacts, enchantments, stuff like that.
What about 2020 indestructible creatures?
Can't do it. I went 1 and 2. Round 1, I was against Hoof, and I just can't beat Marlowe. Although I think I gave them a run for their money.
You were super close in game 3.
Yeah, it was like, you know, I died with my teeth in their neck. But I like Hoof is a bad matchup for me. Sometimes, you know, you bring a deck that I think is quite good, and you lose to the matchups. And I think that was kind of my experience for games 1 and 2. Like I went against Hoof, and then I went against the sort of green-white infinite mana deck, which is a little bit like Hoof.
Green-white infinite mana deck.
The
like
devoted
the-
Vizier.
Yeah, devoted Vizier.
Oh, Celeste, like the, okay.
Yeah, Selesnya
Creature combo.
So I feel like that one may have killed me with Marlash as well. Anyway, yeah, I can't deal with that card.
You got Krakus in your deck?
I don't.
Well,
You know, splash Krakus in your green-black deck?
I mean,
you can play crop rotation too. Find it.
We were just talking about this.
Grab yourself a Bajuka.
Get yourself a Bajuka Ball!
Come, stay a while. Find a land.
kind of land. But yeah, I really like this deck, and I think it's just going to continue improving as they print little low-to-the-ground cards. Overperformers.
Yeah.
So I've been tinkering with a bunch of sub-themes in the deck to just sort of try things out. I've had a zombie sub-theme, which is all right. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not enough to make it a tribal deck, but it's just a couple of cards that care about, you know, zombies existing in the deck. You know, you have stuff like Gravecrawler, which you
Gravecrawler's
can
the
cast
classic
from the
example.
bin. You know,
Yeah.
that's not bad. It's like you'd play it anyway, and then it just gets better. If you
Well,
have
I've
more
always thought
zombies.
about your deck as having a lot of, not the word recursive,
Stubborn.
just like you can recover from being wrathed very easily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can build back your board.
Yeah.
For a lot of effects like that, right?
So one of the sub-themes that I started adding recently, and it's sometimes difficult to want to try something because it seems cute, and then you try it out and you're like, oh, this is actually not so bad. Green and black happen to have a lot of cards that care about +1/+1 counters on your creatures. So there's cards like Avatar the Resolute,
Yep.
which is, again, you would play it anyways. It's a 3/2 with reach and trample.
Yeah, that card's good.
And upside.
And upside. If you know it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature you control. with a
Scavenging Ooze. What's
Yeah.
the green-black zombie, like a 2/1 with trample?
Lotless Troll.
Lol Troll.
We'll get to him. So there's a bunch of other ones. I added a couple of like kind of niche ones that are arguably questionable, like Skargan Pit Sulk.
It's got 2
Bloodthirst,
power. It costs
unblockable?
1 mana.
It's
Not unblockable.
It's a green for a 1/1.
Hey,
Creatures with power less than it can't block it,
Hmm.
and it's got Bloodthirst 1. So if your opponent was dealt damage, it enters with +1/+1 counter.
Yeah,
So
all right.
the card that overperformed in the deck was one that I sandbagged on for a very long time. Straight from old standard, it's Winding Constrictor.
Oh, baby.
So
What does that do? Just for those of them may not be
green,
familiar.
black, snake. It's a 2/3. If one or more counters would be placed on an artifact or creature you control, that many of those counters plus 1 are placed on that permanent instead.
Very nice.
If you would get one or more counters, you get that many of those counters plus 1 instead.
Seems bad against Infect.
It's very bad against.
But nobody plays Infect, so who cares?
Arlo just sheds 1 tier.
Yeah. It burns a hole in the table. So the floor for this card is not as bad as I thought it was.
Okay.
Because it turns out, weirdly, Black Mold has access to like more 2/3 creatures for 2 than I thought, and 3 toughness is not so bad. I mean, if you're staring at
Especially for 2 mana.
if you're staring across the table at like pikers, you're just like, come on in, let's go. So this card is fine on its own in a vacuum, and with a bunch of the cards in that I'm playing anyway, is insane. Like, let me paint you a picture of a
please.
play that I this may have been before the tournament, but I had Winding Constrictor, Lotleth Troll, which is the 2/1 for black-green, regenerates for a black. You can pitch a creature card to it to put a +1/+1 counter
It
on
also
it.
has trample.
Oh, yeah, it's-
Why does it have trample?
I don't know.
Maybe
So,
for this reason.
my boy Lotleth Troll picks up a GT. And I crack in and get to say the phrase, put 3 counters on GT.
Because Winding Constrictor says artifact
Yeah.
or creature. You can be like, discard a creature card, put 2 counters
I
on my
pitched 2
Lotless
creature
Troll,
cards and like gave a
trample
+4/+4.
for X,
Oh,
put 3
baby.
counters on my GT.
That's a lot of damage.
That was powerful magic. So
Snake puts more counters on
it
GT?
does. I've been trying to find other things. It puts more counters on
Holy moly.
Ether Vial, but that's maybe not quite as good.
That's getting a little too
Yeah,
deep.
I thought about Tangle Wire, and that's also like, maybe not what you want to be doing.
Okay,
but
now let's hold on. Tangle Wire.
yeah,
Go
you
on.
think so?
Well, it's not good, but it's
Kind of cool.
sweet. Yeah.
Tangle Wire's 3 mana
Yeah.
artifact. It enters with 4 fading.
Fading
counters?
counters.
But it
yeah.
could be 5 fading counters.
Yeah. This is a weird card that looks like poop when you glance at it, but then you realize the way fading works.
It's symmetrical.
No, it isn't.
It's symmetrical.
It's not symmetrical at all. So it enters with 4 fading counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a fade counter from it. If you can't, sacrifice it. This is dissimilar from Vanishing, which is the same mechanic, but
When you remove
you
the
remove
last
the
counter,
last one.
sacrifice it.
so anyways. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player taps an untapped artifact, creature, or land he or she controls for each fade counter on Tangle Wire. So what you do is you slap this down. It's got 4 counters. Pass to your opponent. They have to tap
their
4
board.
things.
Yeah.
Comes back to you. You stack the triggers. You take a counter off. One of the permanents you tap is Tangle Wire.
Yeah.
You tap 2 permanents.
Yeah.
So
Let's-
4, 2, 3, 1, 2, nothing.
Now let's just say one of the permanents you might tap is like a skull clamp or a GT.
Or your GT. Yeah. Yeah, if you've got equipment.
Yeah, this
A
card,
batter skull.
This card was fair and symmetrical for like a decade plus.
Yeah.
And they printed equipment.
Yep. So anyways, yeah, like Winding Constrictor has wound its way into my heart.
I see what you did there. Because it's a snake.
It's very good.
That's super cool.
There's
That's super cool.
notable other cards that I am hoping to utilize with it in play include Nissa, Voice of Zendikar.
Oh.
Her -2
That's-
is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you
It's the
control.
classic standard play.
Yeah, so put 2 on each.
That's certainly buffing your board.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Drana.
Yeah, Drana.
What's her face?
Liberator of
Liberator
Malakir.
of Malakir, who 1 black 2/3 flying first strike. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control.
So you got a pretty spicy little something
So
there.
put 2 on each.
What do you think this is better than? I mean, it's tough because it's only the one card that really. Would you play Hardened Scales
No,
if you're trying to?
absolutely not.
If you're trying to like lean into this
I thought
theme?
about it.
Yeah.
Hardened Scales doesn't do anything on its own.
Yeah.
The reason Winding Constrictor is better is because, like, if you never draw a cares about +1/+1 counter spell the rest of the game, you have a 2/3.
For 2.
Just got an Elvish Warrior
Yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah.
Well, that's like Pithing Needle versus Phyrexian Revoker in the right deck, right? You can get the
Exactly.
same effect. Sometimes you
Exactly.
don't need to. Sometimes you have to make sure that it works with your
this
strategy.
is one of those situations where the floor of this card is sufficient that it's worth playing.
Still carries a G-Tank.
Yeah, exactly. Cracks in, lives through Pyroclasm.
Oh, baby.
Okay, so sorry. One more thing.
Please.
3 toughness was relevant in a game where my opponent goes Elish Norn. I have 2 creatures that are 2/3s. They become 0/1s. I'm like, untap, like Doomblade, crack in.
Woo!
Just like, I can take it. I'm back. Yeah. Little differences of like one or 2 points of toughness are sometimes very important. So
We talk a lot about how, especially when new cards get printed, like how does it pass a bolt test?
Sure.
But I think it also gets
I didn't pass
forgotten.
the bolt test.
Yeah, you
The
didn't pass
Elish
the bolt
Norn test?
Well, no, not the Elish Norn, but like the decks only have so many lightning bolts, and a lot of the other red decks, like maybe blue-based or multicolored red decks, don't dip into shocks, but they certainly have arc trails and forked bolts.
Electrolyze.
Electrolyze, Kolgan's Command.
All these things that do 2 damage.
Just a series
Fire
of
ice.
red instants or sorceries that only deal 2 damage to one of the targets. A lot of them will divide their targets, but if they can't electrolyze a 2/3, I mean they can, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you have a board with, a 2/3 and something else, and they're holding onto a fork bolt, they start sweating. Like, oh, this isn't good at all.
All right. I'm going to pass it over to Ben. Ben, what did you play?
Oh, Granny Wheeler cooked up a couple of omelets for guests at Grand Prix Vancouver.
I'm going to need you to explain that.
All right.
1,000 eggs.
So the 2 options that I was going to bring after reaching out to Twitter to figure out what I should bring, it was either Muscle Wizards or eggs. And of course I said no to Muscle Wizards and instead brought eggs.
So Jaron Ben wanted people to watch them play Magic. All right, I see.
Eggs is, and as I will tell, eggs is a surprisingly interactive combo deck.
What was your record?
The changes. I went 2-1.
Okay.
I lost to a fellow Victoria player playing Pattern Rector.
Oh, baby.
Sandy B. And I think one of the reasons why I lost is because I made changes to my deck to have more of a, I don't want to say a controlling element, but to have
More interactive?
to be grindier,
okay.
basically. I didn't expect as many blue decks to show up, and I wanted to, kind of grind people out through either engineered explosives. For those not familiar, it's an artifact that costs X and has Sunburst. So for each color of mana used to cast this, comes with that many counters. You pay 2, sacrifice it, and destroy each non-land permanent with CMC equal to that. And all the permanents I have are just dumb eggs. Like, they don't do anything. They just sit around. I don't mind when they die for a lot of time. And looping this card with Academy Ruins feels pretty good.
Judge,
Yes.
if you cast this for 0 into a Winding Constrictor, what happens?
Oh, well, it would enter with 0...
+1?
I believe so. We have 3 judges here. What's Winding? I'd have to read Winding.
I wouldn't
Winding
play this in my
Constrictor.
deck, but now I'm just curious.
I'm
Right, well, it
pulling my
says
phone on
if
stream
it-
now.
If a permanent would enter the battlefield with counters, it instead enters with an additional counter. But this
Yeah.
isn't entering the battlefield with a counter.
Colorless mana won't give engineered explosives another charge counter. Colorless is not a color.
Yes.
Right,
A token has a converted mana cost of 0 unless it's copying something else. There's nothing else in the notes and rules that I've seen.
I would rule no, because
Yeah.
Winding Constrictor says if one or more counters
one
are
or
to be
more,
placed
okay.
on it. This
So
is
it
entering
doesn't
with
count.
0.
Yeah, we just need to figure out what the snake said again after staring at it for like 10 minutes. That's totally fine. So cards like Engineered Explosives, the aforementioned Academy Runes. I did some pretty funny loops with Academy Runes. My deck has a lot of different ways to tutor out lands and artifacts.
Which one are
and-
you playing, just for curiosity's sake?
which
So crop rotation, Sylvan Scrying, any other land tuners?
expedition map.
Yeah. Works well with Academy runes.
Yeah,
Teleria West.
Teleria West is one.
Were you playing? What's the Bant and X?
Wargates.
Were you playing? Is this a Wargate deck?
Oh, it's a Wargate deck.
Heck yeah.
Wargate's great. Costs 3, finds Academy or Black Lotus. What more do you want from life?
I mean,
I got to do some fun shenanigans with Academy runes, like looping Necrogen Spellbomb and making my opponent just discard the only card in their hand every draw step. That felt pretty good.
Fun.
I haven't gotten to do that for a long time.
Powerful magic.
I added Mindslaver back to the deck,
Okay.
which has been on the bench for at least 3
that
years.
seems surprising.
It's going to go back to the bench. It's-
Really?
Yeah.
Can you explain the Mindslaver lock? It's been a while. I don't know if a lot of people are
Sure.
familiar
So
with it.
Mindslaver is a legendary artifact that costs 6 mana. It has pay 4, tap, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control a target player during their next turn. So you control their turn. You make all the decisions for them. You can't concede on their behalf, but once you get the loop in motion, they will, I mean, they should probably concede. So you need
Well, you
to...
also get infinite turns.
Well, hold on.
Well,
Explain how we set that up. Yeah.
So basically, you play Mindslaver, you sacrifice Mindslaver, you take their next turn, and somewhere along the line, you have to activate Academy runes to put it back on top. So each loop, I'm going to be drawing a Mindslaver for my turn, so I'm not decking myself. But my opponent, whose turn I'm going to control, is going to continue to draw through their deck.
And make some really bad plays.
Yeah, so
Oh,
you need,
yeah.
You need 13 mana, one of which is blue.
13. I make 13 mana before I make my coffee in the morning. You get up, tap a Tolarian Academy, and 5 minutes later, boom, you got 13 mana. So I added cards like this to kind of grind out, and I got out comboed.
Just other decks were faster.
No, well, I found myself trying to draw through my deck, not infinitely, mind you. I had a set number of draws. It was 13, and I drew cards like Engineered Explosives that wouldn't exactly do much against a Pattern Rector opponent that's about to kill me if I let them untap.
Sure.
I fought a younger Academy player who we sat down. I asked, how's your round going? I mean, I know we both lost the first round. And he said, oh, I mulliganed a bunch, and, you know, I didn't really get to play much Magic, and I hope you'll let me play some Magic this round. And, oh, you sweet summer child. I did some wacky things there. And then in round 3, I fought an Esper control opponent, and I kept a 0-land hand. Got there.
What were 3 of the cards in your 0 land?
Oh, they're not that important. Just Black Lotus, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal. There may have been some other gas in there.
My name's
so-
Ben. I keep 0-land hands.
With 7 mana.
Wow, it's like he's really here in the room.
2 bends.
I'm seeing.
So, so all quite good cards. It was a little awkward being on the play. I scryed a land to the top, so it wasn't all that bad. But I just said,
It
all
wasn't
right.
even a 7?
Huh? No, this was second 6. But you don't ship that. You got Lotus. You got Petal. You got LED. What more do you want?
Gas?
Oh, I got gas.
Okay. Yeah, no.
And so I just kept my 6. I'm like, go. And they're like, huh? I'm like, go.
It's like,
They're like, "Oh."
get him.
And then they played a Watery Grave. I'm like, oh, this could go very poorly. So I played out all my trinkets, thankfully, because then they untapped and thought erasured me. So dodged that bullet. But
that card's seeing play, huh?
Well, I also got pretty lucky, drew a Scrap Trawler, and then just went off. For those not familiar, Scrap Trawler is a 3-mana artifact. It's a artifact creature. It's a 3/2 that says whenever Scrappy Boy or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you return to your hand target artifact in your graveyard with less converted mana cost.
Uh-huh.
So
Impossibly
there's
spicy.
a very infamous deck in, I've never seen that art. There's a very infamous deck in Modern after Clark Clan Ironworks, a card that is near and dear to my heart, and
impossible
also
to pronounce.
in this deck, KRA.
I rest my case.
RK.
Yeah.
Clark.
Dash.
Clark dash Clan, CLAN, And then
Let's
Ironworks
give Beej a second here.
Yeah.
Try to get K.
K-R-A-R.
K-R-A-R.
Clark.
Yeah.
Clark
It's a palindrome.
Clan.
Ironworks. Jinx.
Say that 3 times fast.
Hey, there we go. So, in the modern equivalent has a series of infinite loops. But it also has its fair share of, I'm probably going to kill you. But they use Mox Opal. So 0 mana artifact adds mana if you have Metalcraft. Black Lotus is a lot better than Mox Opal.
Wait, sorry, hang on.
It's kind of ridiculous. Yes.
So you sacrifice a 0 drop?
Yeah.
Do you get a 0 drop back?
No,
okay.
that would be way too good.
Yeah,
Instead,
you
what
can't-
I do,
You can't loop zeros forever.
that would be absurd. Instead, what I do is I cast Black Lotus about 21 times in the turn by cycling cards like Darkwater Egg,
Chromatic Star.
Chromatic Star.
Ichor Wellspring.
Darkwater Egg pays a nice little homage. To
Yeah,
the
every time an
actual-
egg draws you back a card, you end up getting to Black Lotus back to cast it. So you just start creating a little wheel, and then your mana starts growing and growing and growing, and bleh.
So yeah,
A spaghetti.
I then also had the same opponent. I didn't have anything relevant in board. I just had, again, most of the cards in my deck are not good. A lot of them are
Well, you're playing eggs.
a solid
You
one
could say
out
they're
of
fragile.
That deck's really weird because it's a bunch of like stuff you would be embarrassed to.
Yeah, draft chaff.
Yeah, draft just the worst kind of sawdust. And then cards that are the most expensive cards in the game.
Yeah.
Together at last.
Well, so I had this board of just like Alchemist's Vial. I'm just going to name a couple of these really bad Mam Jammas. I talked about Zurin Orb. This is a very good Zurin Orb deck. Or
Yep.
you talked about
Yep,
Zurin Orb.
yep.
And I may have had a Sword of the Meek in play,
Oh, sneaky boy.
which doesn't really do anything by itself, but I think you can maybe tell where this is going. So Sword of the Meek.
Are you playing a single creature that triggers Sword of the Meek?
I was playing Mirror Retriever for this event, which is so Sword of the Meek is a 2-mana artifact that it's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+2. Oh, that is glare of heresy.
Sorry.
And it says equip, pay 2, but you don't use that. It also says when Sword of the Meek is in your graveyard, if a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield, you can have Sword of the Meek return from the graveyard and attach it to that creature. So this combos with a whole bunch of different things in this deck, but mostly Thopter Foundry.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
But also
What's Thopter Foundry?
Psy, that's a good one. Thopter
Psy Master
Foundry
Thopters?
is a blue and then hybrid black-white
Yeah.
for an artifact that says pay 1 colorless, sacrifice an artifact. You make a 1/1 blue Thopter with flying that's an artifact creature, and you gain a life.
And then so Sword of the Meek dies, you get a 1/1.
Yeah.
Sword of the Meek in your graveyard sees the 1/1's like, ha-ha, and comes back
comes
attached
back.
It makes
and
that
then-
exact noise.
So,
So weird.
Pretty good with Tolarian Academy.
Yeah.
Infinite with Ironworks. Basically, I just had all this trash in play and just Sword of the Meek. My opponent has a Strip Mine available and 3 other blue mana. And we go to my end step, and I have 2 cards in hand, but I haven't been doing anything. And they tank, and they tank, and they tap their mana slightly and go, oh, and then they're like, I'll do it, and they cast Factor Fiction. I let Factor Fiction resolve, separate the 5 cards that they reveal into 2 piles. They picked the pile that didn't have any creature removal or board wipes in play, which is understandable. I then proceeded to cast Crop Rotation and make about 40 Thopters. So I won that match. But yeah, Eggs was a blast. The deck's great. The deck's a lot of fun. The weekend was a lot of fun.
The weekend was a
That
lot.
was
Yeah,
such a
I want to
good
give a shout out, if I can give a shout out.
Please, shout out.
I want to give a shout out to Joe from New Zealand, who Jared already shouted
Yeah.
out. I want to give a shout out to Wesley from California, who is
Yeah.
also here with Joe and was at the GP.
We ended up having dinner with them last night.
Oh, I'm familiar. Yeah, you guys, Alex
texted you
sent
photos.
me a
It
picture.
was so good, Ben.
Yeah, was it good?
Delicious.
It was good, Alex?
It was so
Oh, I don't know.
tasty
I
in my
had
belly.
oatmeal for dinner.
Oh.
That was good. Was
Classic
your food good?
blunder, yeah.
All right. So, and I want to give a shout out to Eloquent, who puts in endless amounts of work on the Discord, the Canadian Highlander Discord. Why are you doing this? Why? This is just cruel and unusual. Now you're showing me sigh. Great. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. This is all right. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to, everybody that I met during the weekend. Like the enthusiasm for the format was
unreal.
crazy. We just had people. We had like 5 long tables of people jamming games while the
Constantly, the whole weekend.
just like on like the Saturday morning.
Well,
It's like the main event's going on. You just have like 30 people playing Highlander just casually in the back.
And
We
as
gotta
soon as the event ended, there were like 30 people over in Turbo Town just cramming.
Turbo Town.
Yeah.
You go play side events.
Yeah.
You show up with 8
These
people.
invitational cards are getting very weird.
All right, I want to see if I can really quickly remember all the win cons I had, because it was neat. So I talked about Zeranorb, Titania. I talked about OG Scape Shift.
Recipe and staging your opponent's dark depths.
Yep. Did I only talk about 3 so far?
Yes.
I killed somebody with Seismic Assault.
Yep.
Just classic Seismic Assault. It was fantastic. I won a game with Muldrotha. Just Muldrotha beatdown.
What?
Yeah.
Muldrotha.
There was
No,
Muldrotha in
Muldrotha.
that.
What's the
Not
other?
Muldrotha.
What's the 6 mana cares about lands card that has it?
Oh, Multani.
Oh, Multani.
Pardon me, Muldrotha, Multani, all of these.
They're completely different.
Well,
lands.
Multani's and
sick.
Muldrotha's flavor text.
Other Multani, Yavamaya's avatar.
They're both mythics from the same set. Help me out here. So Multani, Yavamaya's avatar, 6 mana 0/0, seems decent. For 4 green, legendary elemental avatar. It has reach and trample. Multani, the avatar, gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land in your graveyard.
Oh!
So I want to say that Multani won the game, but Multani plus Scape Shift kind of won the game.
Oh!
Shift, give my Multani +1 million +1 million.
Yeah.
At last, after 10,000 years, I'm free!
Yeah, because Multani is counts the lands in play and the graveyard. Scape Shift, sacrifice any number of lands. So you have 10 lands, and all of a sudden Multani is just like you said, I'm free
Wait,
now.
so you could feasibly scape shift for a bunch of fetches, crack the fetches.
They all can
They
play
enter
tapped,
tapped.
but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, your
Almost.
brain is going the right. You're seeing the value.
We can get an Amulet of Vigor involved.
You're seeing all the lands lines now.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
And what was the other one? What was the other one?
Beej. Amulet of Vigor. Yes, good.
Banned in Modern.
No, it's not. Oh,
it's like
no.
it's an archetype staple in Modern. There's literally a deck
Didn't
around
they
it.
try to ban this out
They
of Modern?
banned Summer Bloom.
But you can't keep us down.
The deck is still broken apparently.
Interesting.
Broken's. I don't want to call that on the. Dude, keep down. Don't tell anybody.
Ben is currently building the deck in Modern.
I rebuilt it after they banned Summer Bloom, and I tilted out of it.
Sideboard appropriately. Broken is one of those phrases that gets tossed around about as frequently as strictly better than, and about as
Oh.
accurately.
How did I forget this? All right, I remember my last win con. It was the final game of the final round.
It was the friendship that.
I ripped 7, and what do I see in my opening 7? Take a wild guess.
Fast Bond Strip Mine.
Fast Bond. Not Fast Bond Strip Mine, but Fast Bond.
Fast Bond, who cares what the other 6 cards are?
Fast Bond?
Yeah.
And then I had 2 of my other favorite cards when I see Fast Bond in a hand. One is a humble little 1 mana 0/3.
Oh, Jetty Offshoot.
The offshoot.
Sorry.
Horn of Greed.
It's a cute little plant.
Jaddy Offshoot, green, 0/3, plant defender, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you gain a life. So suddenly I'm not taking damage off this. And the other card in my hand was Courser of Krufix.
Toot toot.
So 3 mana 2/4 for 1 green. Also has the text, whenever a land enters the battlefield, you gain a life, but you can also play a land off the top of your card. So I started just playing lands and gaining life, and my life total is just creeping up and up and up. I eventually got a Experimental Frenzy in play as well.
What the heck is that?
It is the first and best card because it has the word coffee in the flavor text. We were wrong about this. We talked about this in the set review. 4 mana enchantment for 3 and a red. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. You cannot play cards from your hand. 4 mana destroy Experimental Frenzy. Well, it turns out when you have a bajillion lands and you can play anything off the top of your library, and you don't ever have to worry about getting stuck on land drops. This is absurd.
Neat.
So basically, there wasn't any particular win con that I remember. I just had 3 different effects that let me play cards off the top of my library. I'm gaining life. I'm living the dream, and my opponent's just sitting there being like, "Kill me already." I'm like, "I can't yet, but wait."
Hold.
Yeah.
So you're like a cat playing with a mouse before it's just like, give me death.
This card was actually the inspiration for the version of the deck I built.
Really?
I
Pass on coffee.
Amazing.
built that deck to try to make. I was like, I think this is a playable experimental frenzy deck. Cram.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I can't believe I forgot that fast one was my win con. So yeah, let us conclude on our GP Vancouver talk. Anything else you'd like to add? We did some shout outs. We talked about the wonderful people. We talked about the wonderful event. We talked about our wonderful Magic cards. Anything else?
I didn't say it yet, but all my opponents were super rad. They're awesome people,
Yeah.
great to play
it
against.
was.
All the matches I played all weekend were super fun.
Like, thank you to everybody for
Yeah.
that.
Good community.
I do want to give one little fun. If you enjoy, to those of you that attended GP Vancouver and enjoyed it and enjoyed the Canadian Highlander, or maybe you missed being able to attend and wanted to get some more wanted to get some Canadian Highlander at I guess, Magic Fest.
Go on.
Now, we are going to have some more official side events at Magic Fest Calgary later this year in March 29th.
End of March. Yeah.
End of March 29th. Final answer. Not final answer, but probably final answer.
It's the whatever the last weekend in March is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're right. It's
All
the
right, yeah.
weekend of the 29th.
So yeah,
If
shout
you're in
outs
Canada
to
and you want to rumble,
yeah. Shout outs to CFB events for giving us the opportunity to do this too, and for like when I asked about them, like, oh yeah, you guys are on the schedule for Calgary. Don't worry about that. We were going to do that anyways.
maybe we'll get more than 3 rounds this time.
Hopefully. Well,
We'll see.
We'll see.
Well, then let us move to our closing segment, Powerful Magic. Burr, burr, burr. And up today, I have Ben, and Ben hasn't told me the story, but he told me this is probably one of the top 5 most powerful Magic stories that we'll see on the podcast. So let's.
Just gonna
I
seat
gave it
myself
the
carefully.
top 5 designation.
All right, so let's hear this.
This
I'm
story
ready.
feels like you put a bunch of writers in a room. They're like, all right, you got to come up with this story involving like Highlander that is just like so absurdly like niche and just like wild, and you got 3 hours. So this wasn't from the Grand Prix. This was from the first Highlander event for our 2019. The first half of the 2019 season.
Okay.
I'm playing 5-color garbage plate combo, which we've talked
I'm
about
really
before.
happy you adopted that name.
Yeah, it very accurately describes
5-color buffet, combo buffet.
So it's got a little bit of Storm, a little bit of Reanimator, Tin Fins,
Just a
Sneak and
sprinkling
Show,
of
Channel
Bomberman.
Emrakul, Bomberman. It slices, it dices.
Yeah.
So
It crumbles.
I'm
It fumbles.
I'm against a 4-color. We call it 4-color Jace control, also known as no face control from the creator. I promised I would shout that out, which is based off of a Spirited Away character
No,
from
no, please,
Nephilim.
no.
I had to get clearance for this story. I have to give the shout.
All right, Nephilim. Check.
So, I'm playing Garbage Plate. Yeah, exactly. I'm playing Garbage Plate, and I have a bit of an iffy hand. It's a little reliant on Tainted Pact, and my opponent's deck has a lot of counterspells in it, like a very disruption. This is a very difficult match. And so I spend the first turn casting like a hand attack spell. I duress them, and they reveal some cards of note and some odd ones. So the ones that are relevant to the story are they revealed a Kasali Pride Mage, which is a 2-mana 2/2 exalted. You pay 1, sack it, destroy an artifact or enchantment.
Oh, he's back on white, huh?
Yeah, Qasali.
Yeah, it's
Yay!
when you type when you highlight something in Scryfall and then you try to type over top of what you've highlighted in the search thing, it just says, no, you don't want to do that. I'll just put it at the end of your thing. Every time.
Why would you do that?
Please fix that.
So Kasali Primage was there. Knight of Autumn was there. Another card that deals with artifacts or enchantments.
Okay.
Also a pain. Some blue stuff and another card, Rift Sweeper.
You have to
One
explain
word.
that one.
So
Heck is
Rift,
a Rift Sweeper?
I'm glad you asked, Alex. Rift Sweeper is 1 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Shaman. Rift Sweeper says when it enters the battlefield, choose target face-up exiled card. Its owner shuffles it into his or her library. This card is in this deck due to Snapcaster, Time Walk. The 4-color Jace control deck has a lot of different Time Walk loops. This might not be the most elegant way, might not be the best card to include for that, but it's a card that's in the deck.
Go to sleep, Alex.
I ignore
Go to
this
sleep.
and I take whatever counterspell they have and keep these disenchant creatures in my mind. And so over the next couple of turns, my opponent ends up basically just playing out the cards that they've drawn. So I have basically perfect knowledge of what's going on here. I have a way to, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to Tainted Pact for either Entomb or a way to put Gristlebrand in the graveyard. This is one of the main win cons of this deck, is you get Gristlebrand or an Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, a massive legendary creature, deal a bunch of damage to them, make them lose either their entire board or you draw 20 plus cards and then storm them out. Now, I'm a bit of a gambling man, so I took a shot in not getting the most perfect. Maybe I'll cast this Tainted Pact. I know what I'm getting. Maybe I might whiff a couple of my win cons. That happens, right?
Uh-oh.
Here are some of the cards that Tainted Pact exiles.
So let's talk about Tainted Pack really quick.
Sure, sorry. So Tainted Pact is a 1 and a black. It's an instant. It says you exile the top card of your library from the game, and I can repeat that process. I can put that card in my hand that's exiled, or I can repeat the process as many times as I'd like, unless I hit a duplicate.
Yeah, so dig down from the top of your library.
Yep.
And in Singleton, you probably don't have any duplicates.
Right.
But every card you pass is gone forever.
Yes, it's exiled.
Yep.
So I cast this Tainted Pact. I think okay, I know what I'm getting. This should be fine. I'll get, I have a couple of options here, but I'm really just zoning in on this Gristlebrand. I exile my Empty the Warrens and Tendrils of Agony. So my 2 Storm kills.
Okay.
The Empty the Warrens makes all the goblins. Tendrils kills them. I exiled my Black Lotus.
That's
I
pretty bad.
exiled my Lion's Eye Diamond.
Uh-huh.
So
Bomberman is now offline.
Bomberman's off. Well, Bomberman also got exiled. I'm glad you mentioned it. I exiled my World Gorger Dragon, so I don't have that combo kill. I exiled my Emrakul, so I don't have that combo kill. Emrakul, World Gorger, for those, I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
It goes infinite with a reanimation enchantment, generates infinite mana. The dragon eats the enchantment gets rid of the dragon brings back the enchantment, yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
So Emrakul's gone. Dragon's gone. My Storm cards are gone. My Bomberman's gone. My Trench Gorger. Trench George is gone.
George! No, George!
Trench George is 6 blue for a 6/6 trample, and when it ETBs, you exile any number of lands from your deck, and it gets to be a very big boy. I get down to about, 30 cards in my deck.
So you can't even draw that many off Emrakul anymore.
And then I hit
Gristlebrand, yeah.
But I finally get to the Gristlebrand. I'm like,
Okay.
well, I probably should have stopped earlier, but you know what? I was committed.
In for a
I
penny.
felt like if I let my opponent untap, I'm losing this game.
We're here now.
Yeah, exactly. So I get to this Gristlebrand finally, but only 30 cards left. And the way that I'm like trying to go through my head, like, what is still in my deck? There's not much. So I reanimate Gristlebrand, but I have to reanimate Gristlebrand with Shallow Grave, which is 1 and a black, an instant. You put the top creature card from your graveyard into play. It gains haste, but you have to exile it at the end of turn. I've already used Cabal Therapy at this point, which is a free sack outlet on my end. And I've exiled Sacrifice in this Tainted Pack stack.
So you're looking for ways to put Grizzlebrand into the graveyard so it doesn't get exiled.
So it doesn't get exiled, because I'm pretty certain that Grizzlebrand is my only win con now, or one of the few.
Yeah.
And I will have to bring this big boy back.
Yep.
Sacrifices, to give reference, and the other card that's in my deck is Burnt Offering, which is the exact same thing as Sacrifice, lets you do different mana, but effectively these cards cost 1 mana, 1 black, and they're instants. They say, as an additional cost, sacrifice this creature, and you add black mana for Sacrifice, or a combination of black and red for Burnt Offering, equal to that sacrifice creature's mana cost.
Yeah.
So it's a way to let me get more Storm, get more mana, and ensure that Grizzlebrand isn't exiled.
What set is that from?
Oh, that's a treasure chest.
You make the cube.
So I get this Grizzlebrand in play. I'm like, okay, I have, 14 draws. Maybe I had 21. It was all a blur. It's some big number, and all I have to do is just hit this sacrifice, and I get to reanimate Grizzlebrand again.
Burnt Offering.
Or hit this Burnt Offering, reanimate Grizzlebrand, and I'm good. I don't hit this card.
Oh!
So Grizzlebrand is getting exiled.
How close to death is your opponent?
He's at 12, I think.
All right.
Pretty bad.
So, but I did draw, 20-ish cards, so I should be fine. So I have this light bulb goes off in my head as I'm panicking because I'm like, I don't have a way to kill him. I'm just going to lose. Like, do I attack with this transmute creature? Like, what do I do here?
The old Dimir Infiltrator
And
beatdown.
then, again, the light bulb comes up. I go, okay, I'll exile Grizzlebrand. I'll discard down to hand size and pass the turn. And my opponent draws. They play a Baleful Strix. They draw a card, and they have mana for a counterspell up. But I know what I'm doing. I had my fingers crossed that they didn't cast a very specific card in their hand. That card is Rift Sweeper.
No.
So I untap, I draw, I add a whole bunch of mana to my mana pool through a variety of rituals. I check to see if the coast is clear with a hand attack spell. It is. And then I play a Thoughtseize. And I grab the Rift Sweeper. And I put the opponent puts their Rift Sweeper in the graveyard. They've got no counter, they got no nothing. I reanimate the Rift Sweeper under my control, use the Rift Sweeper's ability to shuffle my Emrakul back into my deck after it was exiled with Tainted Pact, and then proceeded to Yawgmoth's Will, my Shallow Grave, to bring back, what did I do? I tutored for Through the Breach off of a Yawgmoth's Will, replaying all these rituals, and then I threw an Emrakul at my opponent, killing them. So,
But would have been impossible without
their
opponent's
if my
Rift Sweeper.
opponent didn't have a Rift Sweeper, I had 0 other win cons. Everything exiled. No joke. The remaining cards in my deck cannot kill my opponent unless... Oh, they had a Sword Supply of Shares too, so my Infiltrator line wouldn't work either. So I had nothing. But thankfully they had Rift Sweep.
Do you think he cut that card after that game?
He did. He did. I felt really good.
Holy moly.
My brain hurts.
Yeah.
And that's why Canadian Highlander is great for me.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, friends, that is our episode for the day. Wow, what a story. Well, thank you very much for watching. A reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Thank you very much. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time. See you later.